Hello everyone, this is Modeling with Variety, and today we're taking a look at a few models today. But it's essentially the same model but in different scales. The RX-78F00 Gundam in 1 to 200 and 1 to 100 scale, and the F00 Gundam High Mobility type with the prototype Gundam colors. To see the differences between the trio, let's take a look. First, the unboxing of each. The smallest of the bunch comes only in one concise package, since these are supposed to be given out to the customers of the Gundam Factory, and are meant to be the main souvenir, even without buying something from the Yokohama Gundam base satellite. Which is nice, because that 1,650 yen entrance for a show with 2 or 3 variations, and the viewing of the moving Gundam for non-Gundam fans is kind of steep, to be quite frank. Unfortunately, as of the writing of the script, it has already been discontinued, so these are just going to get rarer as time goes on. Though this isn't really a new issue, but I just wanted to put it out there. The detail so far seems to be deep, which is unusual at this scale, because having deep panel lines like this makes the panel lines look a lot more exaggerated than it actually is on the 1-to-1 scale Gundam, which this is replicating. So yeah, it's kind of jarring. Let's take a look at the high mobility type next. Looking around the box, you're greeted with a nice box art with a sort of 3D rendering style of the Gundam. Around the box, of course, you're going to see some action poses with the main gimmicks shown off. And spoiler, you can make the original colored version if you were so inclined. There's also some information about the unpainted model, which is neat. Opening the box, you immediately get to see the new parts added to make the Gundam High Mobility type, and the rest of the runners. The detail looks nice as well, but with panel lines more appropriate for the scale in my opinion. The runners are of course a mix of PS, KPS, and PC parts for the joints. And by the way, as far as I know, the KPS parts are usually used for the joints of modern Gunpla, starting from what I remember the Build Strike and the Revive Wing Gundam, because of the push for more polycapless designs. These aren't apparent from the unboxing, but from what I know, the KPS parts are much softer gray parts that have a satin finish. Another thing that I've been told that PS parts of this kit are slightly brittle, same with the 1 to 100 scale. Let's see in my comments about the build experience later, but right now I see no difference with recent Bandai model kits. Onto the big guy. The box, like in the previous scale, has a 3D CG artwork on the front, which prominently showcases that this is the 1 to 100 scale model kit, with the Gunpla logo in its name in extremely large font. Around the box, you'll see the poses with the gimmicks of the kit, and yes, this comes with its own stand, which is awesome. More information this time about the Gundam Factory and the F00 Gundam, and of course, Gunpla. Opening the box, you'll see everything that you'll need to build this up. The details are molded even more appropriately this time because of the bigger scale and of course part separation. What's alarming is that ridiculously big sticker sheet, and I don't really see any light gray parts. Oh boy, that doesn't bode well. Another thing I saw that was interesting was the RE runner of polycaps included with this kit. Would that mean the kit will be having a sort of RE 1 to 100 scale feel when building? Probably, but let's save that for when I talk about the build experience. Anyway, no problems here. Let's get them all built up. Alright, so let me say this first. The plastic doesn't feel like anything different from what I'm already used to from Bandai's Gunpla. The reason being that some mixes of plastic really have a few properties of them being slightly different because of their composition. I could only theorize about what comprises of the mix, but I think dyes and how they affect the overall mix of the plastic is the main culprit of this. Like how different colors of paint have different consistencies based on their colors. This theory only applies to solid color kits from Bandai, since clear and colored clear PS parts are absolutely supposed to have a different plastic feel to them when compared to the solid color parts of model kits. With that out of the way, let's talk about the 1 to 200 scale and work our way to the 1 to 100 scale. Immediately, the look of this little kit is really good. The details of it is on point even at this scale. The color separation is even better than the old entry grade. Another good aspect of this kit are the closed fists, which look natural for a Gundam. Let me tell you why. Usually, these model kits suffer from what I call open hand syndrome because of the assumption that these kits would be played with by the owners and would like to give them even simple kits some weapons to hold. This isn't the case with this kit because it's meant to be just a statue to admire on your shelf. Even better if painted. Speaking of which, the design of the bases of this kit really helps with the seam line removal part of the building process of this kit, since the seam lines of the original are everywhere. There are just some parts that you need to be careful of to seal off before you proceed to painting, which are the arms and the top of the knee. There's also the 3-tiered enclosure structure you make for the kit that replicates the cradle or the MS cage, so to speak, of the Gundam. It does its job, and painting it gray would probably make for a better look in my opinion. The articulation I will talk about later, in which I will be doing with all three at the same time. Next, let's look at the 1 to 1/44 scale or the high mobility type. We're going to start with the normal unarmored version of this kit to make it fair for the other two. The look of it is great, and as I've said, the panel lines in my opinion look better than the 1 to 100 scale because of its bigger size. What's an interesting change other than the obvious scale change is that the thigh and lower leg part of the Gundam is different from the smaller version. Like the 1 to 200 scale has a sort of raised detail style, which is simply not the case with this kit. I guess this would be an addendum to the previous segment, since the thigh part having that raised detail on the 1 to 100 scale isn't even accurate to the source material. Good that the 1 to 1/44 version is. Another thing that you would notice are the missing gray color apps, which aren't even corrected with stickers. This isn't something I did because I don't really like putting them on, but this is because they just simply don't exist. They don't even exist with the original 1 to 1/44 scale version with the MS cage. What we have here are caution lights and twin eye stickers, and the V on the crotch. Good or bad, you decide. I'm just saying it how it is. With the beam rifle and shield, it does really complete the look. And the special thing about this model are those ankle armors that are different from the original. more akin to the prototype Gundam. Let's put on the armor. Wow, now that's a look I absolutely adore. The extra armor boxes it up really nicely, having a sort of semi-full armor Gundam vibe going on. The armor doesn't look tacked on, which is great since optional armor like this sometimes look a bit out of place in some designs, which it was in its previous iterations, with I think the Gaplance booster glued like on the back of it, like the Psycho Zaku's. But it seems that my fears were unfounded. And even with the back having the extra thrusters giving it extra bulk, it isn't much back heavy, which is good. I have nothing much more to say about the look, being that this is my preferred look of the F00 Gundam, with the color scheme leaning more to a real type mecha, rather than the classic tricolor scheme. Let's move on to the 1 to 100 scale. Alright, the 1 to 100 scale. Again, the panel lines look great on this kit, even more so than the previous two because of the size of the panel lines relative to the scale. The kit overall is good, but the heft of it is not what you'd expect, since it is mostly big parts sandwiched together. That's just a nitpick, to be honest, but what's not a nitpick though is the problem with the inner thigh joint. Let me preface this with attention to detail is important, especially when talking about model kits. Like, no duh, right? But the thing is, the joint is shaped in a way that hits the top of the waist construction, which limits the movement of this kit. There is a joint on the waist that moves downward to make the leg move more freely. While it does help with the sideways leg lifts, and of course the front leg lift, what it doesn't really help is still the same problem earlier, which is the backwards motion of the kit, the backwards leg lift. And another thing that's bad about this joint is the polycap. The polycap in it tends to slide away from the peg when you try to move it around like a toy, which isn't bad, but considering this joint made the leg pop out even with the extra ridges inside of the polycap, theoretically giving more grip to the polycap to the waist joint, yeah, it isn't great overall. I forgot to include this in the articulation portion later, but the back skirt can be cut into two and moved individually. Another big problem of this kit are those color correcting stickers. They're fine as long as you don't move the kit around much. But I had to for this review, so what happened was they got scratched up since they're on edges of the parts, and worse, they get crumpled because of them not staying on the surface, with the problem being the irregular shape the sticker is covering. This is a problem with most stickers on the kit. The only non-problematic stickers are the ones on the flat surfaces, like marking stickers. Speaking of marking stickers, these are fine, but sticking them on darker plastic doesn't look good, so my recommendation would be just using the stickers on the white parts if you ever want to use them. This would go the same with the 1 to 1/44th version, since it has some marking stickers as well. The inclusion of the stand is such a great touch, and replicating the 1 to 1 scale stand arm is even better. The Gundam attaches to the stand via a notch on the back skirt. The other great thing about this is that you could store almost all of its accessories and unused part of the Gundam in its two forms, the unarmed version and of course the armed version. Oh yeah, the eyes and the V on the crotch are separate parts. And that's, I think, all I could say about the look of this. Let's move on to the articulation and accessories. Okay, so how are we going to do this is simpler but more heavily edited. The center would be the 1 to 100 scale, on the left would be the 1 to 100 scale, and the right would be the 1/44th scale. In each section, I will play a clip that showcases the best articulation of each model, and then gray out the models that's already finished. Okay, go! Head section. Arm section. Body section. Leg section. Foot section. Accessories of the 1:100 scale and the 1:144th scale. That's about it. Onto the final thoughts. In my honest evaluation, while being impressive for its size, the 1:200 scaled version is the worst among the three. While it is mostly accurate and the panel lines on it are an amazing feat in its scale, but the inaccuracy of having raised up panels and the panel lines on it being enormous make me deem it the worst of the bunch. Not to mention, of course, having the worst posability among the three and being discontinued. The best kit among the three is the 1:144th scale version. Not only that it has the most variations, with the MS Cage version being included, and of course my undisputed favorite version, the high mobility type, but it also has almost the same detail in having the best stability as a model in the triad of F00 Gundams we have here. The middleman is the biggest one we have because of its flaws in its jointing, which is really disappointing, And yes, it does feel like an older RE 1:100 scale model kit, which standing does its job. It just trips over in the end when posing is being required. The stand included is an extremely lovely inclusion though. Alright, I'd only recommend buying any of these if you went to the Gundam Factory Yokohama yourself, since these are technically more of souvenirs from your trip and recall the visit with these models. Because you aren't missing much in my opinion. If building Gunpla is your game, and if you think that this is going to be a unique experience, then I'd say no. It wasn't. The detail for sure is amazing, but from a building standpoint, all three were nothing special. And the RX-78, it's such a classic design that you, from what I remember, have not 3, not 5, but 9. The original HGUC, G30th, HG Revive, HG The Origin, Entry Grade Old, Entry Grade New, G40th, Gundam Factory Yokohama version, and the Beyond Global versions of the 1:144th scale Gundam, if you were going for the 1:144 scale version. Less for the other scales, but still a lot. But if you really want it, then go ahead. It's your money anyway. That's all from me. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and if you have thoughts about this, please comment down below so the algorithm notices this channel again. And yeah, thanks for watching.